MarthaSJones, Vanguard, How Black Women Broke Barriers, Won the Vote, and Insisted on Equality for All. Prepare to delve into the inspiring journey of Black women who relentlessly fought against slavery, inequality, and racial barriers. Vanguard, How Black Women Broke Barriers, Won the Vote, and Insisted on Equality for All by MarthaSJones uncovers the untold stories and contributions of these remarkable women as they ardently campaigned for the abolition of slavery and their own emancipation as women. Throughout the book's summary, you'll come across the challenges they faced while advancing their cause, the undeterred commitment they demonstrated, and the trailblazing leaders that emerged from their ranks. Learn about the intersection of women's rights and civil rights and take in the enduring lessons of these historically significant efforts.
Abolitionist movement and women. The American Revolution began as a fight for freedom from British rule, but as the war drew to a close, Americans appealed to revolutionary ideas about equality in their fight against slavery. Initially, the opposition to slavery thought dismantling the institution would take decades, if not centuries. Despite this, abolitionists started making more radical demands for total abolition by the 1830s. The movement thrived in print and edited newspapers owned by both white and black people. They targeted women as a likely ally as they were more open to the moral argument against slavery. Women found reasons to side with abolitionists by drawing parallels between their own disenfranchisement, one-sided marriage laws, and political rights to the plight of enslaved Americans. The Excluded Heroine. Hester Lane's entrepreneurial and abolitionist endeavors in New York highlight the exclusion of black women from leadership positions in the anti-slavery movement, despite their immense contributions. In 1839, members of the American Anti-Slavery Society debated whether women's rights included holding office. The following year, the matter was settled, but when 5 women were nominated for executive positions, including Lane and 4 white activists, every woman was elected except Lane. Charles Rabe believed she was rejected because of her race, reminding us of the discrimination and challenges black women faced in gaining equal opportunities. Black women's path to equality. In the 19th century, black women faced significant barriers to achieving equality, from domestic drudgery to societal opposition to their leadership and religious roles. Maria Miller Stewart and Jarena Lee were among the many women who refused to accept these limitations and charted their own path to success. Stewart argued that women's equality was a political necessity for defeating racism and claimed these rights for herself and others when men refused to grant them. Lee overcame resistance from church leaders and congregations to become the first licensed female preacher in the U.S., traveling thousands of miles on foot to spread God's message. Other trailblazers, including Sarah Mapps Douglas, founded black women's literary and anti-slavery societies, inspiring others to create their own structures and fight for justice. Black women's achievements in the face of adversity demonstrate their resilience and determination in the pursuit of equality. Sojourner Truth and the Fight for Equality. In the 1850s, slavery and the oppression of women were interconnected. Sojourner Truth, an escaped slave turned activist, championed the idea that true freedom could only be achieved when all women, including enslaved black women, were emancipated. This message was driven home by the case of Celia, a young enslaved woman who killed her attacker in self-defense, only to be denied a fair trial by a sexist and racist legal system that viewed her as a piece of property rather than a human being. Sojourner Truth's powerful presence and message continue to inspire activists today. In 1855, Celia, a 19-year-old enslaved woman, killed her attacker in self-defense after years of sexual abuse. Despite her lawyer's appeals to Missouri law that allowed self-defense against an assailant, the judge ruled that Celia, as an enslaved black woman, did not count as a woman and was mere property to her owner. This gruesome illustration of the intersection of racism and sexism in enslaved black women's lives made it clear that the fight for emancipation had to take on both fronts, slavery and the oppression of women. Sojourner Truth, an escaped slave, became a vital voice in the fight for equality in the 1850s. Having experienced firsthand the pain of leaving her children behind to gain her freedom, Truth devoted her life to spreading the message that all women, regardless of race, needed to be free for there to be true equality. Despite the fact that she was illiterate, Truth had a powerful presence that captivated audiences. She reminded those listening that the fight for women's rights could not be divorced from the fight against slavery and that true freedom could be achieved only when all women were emancipated. Throughout her life, Truth worked tirelessly to fight for equality in all its forms. She never let the women's rights movement forget that the oppression of black women could not be ignored if the fight for equality was to be successful. Today, Truth's message continues to inspire activists as they fight against the systemic oppression and inequality that continue to affect people of color and women. The repercussions of the Civil War. The American Civil War led to the abolition of slavery, but it did not guarantee full equality for black Americans. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution were passed, granting civil rights to formerly enslaved persons. Reconstruction resulted in black Americans holding positions of power in government. However, Southern lawmakers eroded voting rights, established Jim Crow laws, and enforced segregation, leading to a new front in the fight for equality. Mary Church Terrell, advocate for universal suffrage. Mary Church Terrell was not only the first black woman to earn a college degree, but she was also a fierce advocate for universal suffrage. She founded the National Association of Colored Women, which fought for biracial democracy and voting rights for all Americans, including black women. Black women continued to call for universal voting rights, even as other groups compromised. Terrell's advocacy was necessary because the women's suffrage movement would be led by white women, who were expected to sacrifice the interests of black women to secure their own rights. Terrell's activism challenged the plainly misogynistic grounds that opposed black women's suffrage. Mary McLeod Bethune's fight against disenfranchisement. Mary McLeod Bethune led the charge against the disenfranchisement of black women in the Jim Crow South, working tirelessly to secure their voting rights and overcome the systemic racism that challenged their equality. The fight to expand voting rights in America was, and remains, a long and challenging battle. In 1920, women were granted suffrage with the ratification of the 19th Amendment, but the fight for equal voting rights did not end there. Jim Crow laws in the South continued to restrict black Americans from exercising their constitutional right to vote. It was against this backdrop that Mary McLeod Bethune, an activist and educator, emerged as a key figure in the fight for voting rights. Born in South Carolina in 1875, Bethune was one of 17 children and the only one to receive an education. After completing her own education, Bethune dedicated her life to ensuring that other African Americans, especially women, had access to formal education. Following the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Mary McLeod Bethune shifted her focus to the issue of disenfranchisement. She founded the Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro Girls, which served not only as a center for education but also as a hub for political organizing. Bethune hosted seminars teaching black women how to register to vote and trained activists to fight against discriminatory policies. Even in the face of violent intimidation by white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, Bethune remained steadfast in her resolve. Despite Bethune's efforts and the efforts of other activists, the Jim Crow South continued to wage war against black voting rights. By 1922, many states had effectively suppressed black voters once again. Bethune knew it was time to take the fight to Washington. She became heavily involved with the National Association of Colored Women, using her position as president of the Florida chapter to lobby for voting rights legislation at the national level. Mary McLeod Bethune's tireless work paid off. Although it would take several more decades before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which ended legal barriers to voting, was passed, she laid the groundwork for future generations of black women to pursue equal voting rights. Bethune's story serves as a powerful reminder that the fight for equal voting rights is ongoing, and that it requires sustained, dedicated effort to ensure equality and justice for all. The influence of Mary McLeod Bethune in the civil rights movement. Despite racist local laws and violence from white supremacist groups holding back grassroots civil rights movements, Mary McLeod Bethune founded the National Council of Negro Women in 1935. This group became the institutional vehicle that allowed her to leverage her influence in the nation's capital, Washington. Bethune's work as an educator and campaigner caught the attention of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who encouraged her husband to appoint Bethune to the Federal Council of Negro Affairs. In this position, Bethune pushed against Jim Crow and helped promote an unprecedented number of black women such as Jane Bolin, the first black judge in the United States. Bethune and other members of the Council of Negro Affairs helped push the Democratic Party toward full-throated support for civil rights, resulting in the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, ensuring no one was prevented from voting on the basis of their race. This legislative agenda desegregated the military, government, education, and public life, leading to the end of Jim Crow and the beginning of a biracial democracy in America.
As an engaging recount of the fascinating lives of black women who fought against slavery and their own disenfranchisement, Vanguard demonstrates the tremendous impact of their struggle. The book highlights the importance of their contributions and the challenges they faced during pivotal times in American history, such as the Abolitionist movement, the Reconstruction era, and the Civil Rights movement of the 1960s. With the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, their quest for a biracial democracy finally seemed achievable. As you read the summary of a Vanguard, consider the immense sacrifices, determination, and courage these women exhibited in pursuit of equality for themselves and generations to come. Their legacy lives on as a testament to the power of perseverance in the face of adversity.